Today's episode was sponsored by Loot Crate, the subscription box for the geek, gamer, and/or nerd in all of us. For less than $20 a month, you get 6 to 8 items of gamer and pop culture licensed gear, apparel, collectibles, unique one-of-a-kind items, and more. Make sure to head to lootcrate.com/kindafunny and enter the code kindafunny to save $3 on a new subscription. This year, thus far, there have been crates featuring some exclusive items from Star Wars and Voltron, as well as some epic geek apparel from your favorite shows. A crate all about strategy games, a crate all about covert operations, and there is only more awesomeness to come. Remember, you have until the 19th at 9 p.m. Pacific to subscribe and receive that month's crate, and when the cutoff happens, Jack, that's it, it's over. You gotta get it, Jack. So go to lootcrate.com/kindafunny and enter the code kindafunny to save $3 on your new subscription today.
So this is how comical this is the comical place these arguments end up, and then they start painting people as bigots or racists. I know what it's like because I'm a Republican. You know, the war on women. Yeah, there's a war. Yeah, okay, there's a war on women. Sure, there is. Half of the Republican voter is women. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, it's all these very reductive. Just because you're pro-life, which I think is, and I'm not pro-life, I'm pro-choice, but just because you're pro-life. And you make a pro-life argument, which I think is a fucking principled and bold argument, and I wish I was pro-life in a way because I respect that side. I really do. They're anti-women. They're bigots. They're sexists. You know? Mm-hmm. This is the way it all comes down. Just like Republicans are often called racist because they want to have a controlled immigration policy. And they're called this, by the way, by a group of people that are running 5 white people for president. Meanwhile, the Republican Party is running a black guy, an Indian guy, a woman, 2 Hispanic people. Yeah, but we're the racists. No doubt about that, because we feel a certain way about our immigration policy. These are the reductive fucking nonsense arguments that then get fed into the mainstream. And then because people don't do the research and don't talk and don't just think about it for a minute, you know, you present them, oh, it's a war on women. If you're pro-life, you're anti-women. Oh, well, this woman's pro-life. As all along with these tens of millions of other women. That doesn't matter. They're all anti-women. It's like, what are you, fucking crazy? This is the kind of reductive nonsense that we come to when we have this very binary way of looking at things. Instead of just saying, like, maybe this man at Mozilla, even though we do not agree with him, and I vehemently disagree with him, I vehemently disagreed with Prop 8, and I voted against it in 2008. Maybe he just had a principled stand. Maybe that's just the way he feels, and maybe he's not a bigot. Maybe he just doesn't believe. Maybe he believes in the traditional religious marriage. Maybe we should just give him the benefit of the doubt. He's not a fucking Nazi. You know what I mean? And maybe this person is just pro-life because they don't believe a 6-month-old baby should be killed out of the womb. And maybe we should just respect that stance, even if we don't necessarily agree with it, instead of calling him sexist. And that's kind of where we get down to it. And trust me, I understand this because it is fucking thrown at me all the time. You know, So that's why I wanted to bring it up, and that's why it makes me so angry, and that's why it makes so many people angry. And I don't think it's a pure white man thing. I think it makes a lot of fucking people angry. You know? To watch their white friends be called a racist or a sexist because they feel a certain way. Women are certainly tired of being told that if they don't believe in like pure feminist doctrine, that they're anti-women, or they don't believe in feminism, or whatever. Maybe they have their own definition of feminism. Right. You know? Like it's just nonsense, and it's just silly, and it all comes back down to this encapsulated political correctness. This very sanitized, this very clean edges, very white and shiny kind of fucking way we want to look at the world, and that's just not the way it is. Jokes are going to be told. You're going to be offended by things. I'm offended by things all the time. I am deeply offended by things all the time. I'm deeply offended by the way people talk about our country. I'm deeply offended by the way people talk about, you know, the people in this country and the way we are in this country and our traditions, but I don't fucking project that on other people. If you want to look at us like we're Wild West gun toters, that's totally fine. I mean, that's your prerogative. I'm not going to project that on you. It's your prerogative. You know? Mm-hmm. Yesterday, I told a joke about on Twitter about Canadians. The Canadians had a big election and they threw out their prime minister, and I tweeted out a picture of the race is coming down to these 2 characters, and it was a polar bear and Don Cherry. Don Cherry is like a hockey commentator. And I was like, these are the 2 final candidates. And 95% of the people thought it was funny, got retweeted a bunch of times. Everyone was fun, you know, Canadian. You had to be Canadian and real deep. Don Cherry's a deep cut. So you'd really have to be Canadian and stuff like that. But there's a few people like, funny suits. But there's some people like, what the fuck, man? Why are you making fun of our... I'm like, come on. I'm so clearly joking.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the thing, and I think oftentimes people choose to be offended first before they do anything, and that's just kind of like just unfortunate.
It's the knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
Of you see the Twitter and you want to make the response, and then you're on with your day and you're moving on to the other thing.
Just know that that's
extremes.
Not, just know that sort of reaction is just does not give you any sort of real validity in life.
Talk to each other. Listen to each other. Have conversations.
And here's the craziest thing of all, to your guys' point, because you're right. Talk to each other. Listen. Maybe it's fair for the one side not to assume the worst of the other side. Maybe the Republicans, by and large, aren't sexist.
No.
And maybe they're not racists. I mean, I'm not sexist and I'm not a racist. You know? All the Republicans I know are not racist and not sexist, including, obviously, the women, including, obviously, the minority Republicans that I know. You know? Maybe it's time to stop drawing caricatures of people that you don't agree with. Maybe it's stop, we're talking about painting with broad brushes. Let's talk about painting. Let's really talk about that then, because that's the reductive argument that we come to and that's where things get really shady and really fucked up with political correctness, which is a very real phenomenon, which is that if you don't agree with them, you're bad, you're evil.
Right.
They'll block you on Twitter.
Character assassination.
They'll assassinate your character. It doesn't matter what you say. I've been there over and over again. I've had people look at my fucking Twitter icon, which is a Gadsden flag. They don't know anything about history, so they don't know what the Gadsden flag even is. They just know that was associated with the sect of the Republican Party today, but they don't know that that's from the 1770s. And it was the flag, fucking newsflash of the American Revolution. They'll look at that and be like, he's anti-gay.
Yeah.
And he doesn't believe in the rights of women, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, what are you possibly talking about? Don't you realize that A, you're character assassinating me, and B, that just doesn't fall in line with the things that I've actually said and done with my life? Make a lot of assumptions about people that way. And as someone who is on the receiving end, it's not easy being a conservative or a Republican in a very liberal field, in a very liberal place like Twitter, but I stand by my convictions. And you know what? I know people appreciate that. Yeah, and I've been told, and I've said this before, people in this industry all the time come up to me, people you would know, come up to me in this industry, big names, small names, people at all different studios, and thank me. And it's not an uncommon thing to do because they know that someone out there is speaking for them.
I think to your point, and to sort of illustrate that perfectly with you, is that you're not the traditional evil Republican, right? You're not that sort of demonized figure in the Republican Party. You are a fiscal conservative. You're more libertarian. And you're pretty liberal when it comes to everything else social.
Yeah,
and
but
so,
this is spiraling off into a different sect now. This is a whole different topic of conversation.
This is
very much what we were talking about before.
To draw back to my original point, though, is that yes, but that duality can't exist in one person. It's when you start peeling off those super stupid, superficial levels that you can start understanding that people are more than just one word or one phrase to define them.
Right.
That's all I'm
okay.
It's not bad to be a Republican, but you can be a Republican and still believe in gay marriage.
100%. Colin proves that every day. That's the problem. But the Republicans and the Democrats fucked it all up for themselves, and they are laying in the bed they made.
Well, see, I don't think it's that. I think it's so many different things. You're right.
And I'm talking about the top of the party.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the presidential spectrum.
It's because they have
Mitt Romney's a straight
base.
shooter, awesome dude. He seems like, and then he goes out and he has to be the fucking waving the Republican flag, and I hate gay marriage. And I hate this and all this other stuff.
But the question is then why? And this is the thing, just the duality of the debates that are going on. The Democrats have a debate with a really reasonable moderator in Anderson Cooper, who I think is a very smart man, and they have a reasonable conversation for 2 hours. And everyone looks at that and they're like, oh, that's interesting. Look at the adults talk. Now let's look at the Republicans, these fucking idiot backwater assholes that are stupid fucking morons and don't know anything. And I'm like, is that really in your mind the way you see these people?
No, but it's
hard.
You
see people that went to Harvard and Oxford and all these things as idiots. Are you out of your mind?
They try. It's hard because they're so obviously placating and playing to their base, right? And so they'll start answering questions, and you're like, oh, that's an actual intelligent answer, and then they'll just shoehorn some random shit in there where you're like, oh, and the Democrats do the same thing, by the way, but the Republicans make it all so obvious. It's so obvious when they just start talking about God, and you're like, that wasn't even what the topic was.
Sure, but the point I'm trying to make is that there's even optical problems with the way that these things are perceived by both sides. That the Democrats aren't or I'm not saying the Democrats because I think that's wrong and that feeds into what I'm saying, but people that are throwing these kinds of words around are not intellectually honest or just smart enough to realize that a lot of that has to do with moderating, that a lot of that shit has to do with the way that they just look at Donald Trump and pit everyone against Donald Trump and then Donald Trump against everyone, and that this guy's just a disruptive figure, and that they look at the entire field of 15 people and they're like, all these people are idiots. None of them can be president. Yeah, Marco Rubio's a real dumb guy. Yeah, no doubt about that. Jeb Bush, real dummy. Like, is that really the way you see them? You see your opposition as cartoon characters like that? Because I don't see my opposition as cartoon characters. Someone asked me about Bernie Sanders and why I'm so fixated on him. I'm like, because I find him fascinating. That's why I'm fixated on him. I don't disrespect him. I think he's fucking wrong. I think he's got delusions if he thinks that he can do anything he wants to do in the United States. But I follow him and I'm intellectually interested in what he has to say, so I understand where the other side comes from. I watch the Democratic debate just as riveted as I am by the people that are saying the things that I agree with. And I don't look at all of the Republicans on the field and think that all of them belong there. I don't like Mike Huckabee. I don't like Santorum. I don't like Cruz.
To be fair, Jeb Bush does come off a little doofy sometimes.
I don't agree at all. Jeb Bush is a smart guy. Jeb Bush should have been the one that was president, and everyone knows that. And
We
Jeb
got
Bush,
the wrong one.
and and that's always going to be the argument, is that Bush, W. Bush just outflanked him at a time when everyone thought it was going to be Jeb Bush, and it's too late for him now. But to just walk up to your opposition and just think the worst of them because of certain viewpoints that they hold, and maybe they just hold principled viewpoints, like they have nothing valuable to say, that's really the way you look at the other side? I can't imagine walking through my life like that. People have said to me that they would never be friends with the Republicans, that they don't have no conservatives, they don't agree with them, and I'm like,
down to that reductive messaging, man.
and that's what I'm
exactly
saying, because I don't look at things like that. If I didn't have liberal friends or Democratic friends, I wouldn't be able to talk to most of my family and then most of my friends. Because I'm able to separate those things and understand that even if you have these viewpoints that, like, are Bernie Sanders, he's a socialist, he and I don't see eye to eye on anything, yet I know that his heart's probably in the right place, and I'm sure that we could probably find a middle ground somewhere, and I don't have to call him a fucking kooky communist or a socialist and all those kinds of things, the way my side are called racist and sexist and bigots, when most of us are not. And that's the point I'm trying to make, and that's where this political correctness and these reductive arguments come down to, where you just dehumanize the other side, and then the media picks it up, and then it's just this whole furor of just nonsense. When we want to talk about the issues too, and we don't like our own cartoon characters any more than you do, But maybe when you attack someone like Donald Trump and you call everyone racist, and he's the only one sticking up for you, maybe you understand why a third of the fucking Republican political apparatus supports him. You know what I mean? Because at least someone's sticking up for them. And these are the kinds of things that really bother me. And like, we can't have normal conversations in this country because everyone has something to fucking bitch and complain about, instead of getting down to the nitty gritty of what we actually need to talk, and maybe not dehumanizing each other and not calling each other racist and bigots and sexist and anti-intellectual and stupid and climate deniers and religious fanatics and all these kinds of things. I don't throw those fucking things at the other side. I could easily call them fucking financially brain dead. I can call them socialists. I can call them all those kinds of things, but I choose not to, because I know their heart's in the right place, and we just got to figure it out.
But that's the thing, is like, people in your party do, just like the people in the Democratic Party call Republicans names. That's the whole problem, and where I go back to with the spectrum is what I'm saying. Yeah, you can't tell me that Republicans aren't calling Democrats bleeding heart liberals and wanting to give out too much welfare and all these other different things, that they're only in it for the minorities, and that's why they keep winning. I mean, that's the whole problem.
I do believe that, but I do think that part of it is reactionary. I do think that.
Sure, no, that's the whole point.
I do think that the fucking flamethrowing is way more pronounced on the left, and I think that it's just accepted, and the Republicans just sit there and take it. Like, by and large, just take it. That's why Donald Trump's so appealing to people, because he doesn't. And it's like so obvious why people like him. Like, everyone's like, it's not about policy. No, he can say whatever the fuck. Like, he could say he wants to fuck a goat tomorrow and his points will go up 5 points because he just said something.
Yeah.
That's, of course, a throwback to an early Game Over.
Oh yeah, I know.
Anyway, like, we will have way more political conversations, I'm sure, on Game Over Greggy show than this. But understand that, I'm interested in hearing all sides of the argument, and I know what it's like to be shouted down, and I know what it's like to be reduced to a cartoon character or whatever. And frankly, I think it's easy for people to do it on the other side, because I don't think they have that experience. Not on social media, not in this industry. They don't know. They don't know that it takes a little bit of braveness and a little bit of boldness to just continue to be beat up like I've been beat up for years, and just continue to do it because I believe in what I say. And then I know that there are a lot of people that I speak for. And when people stop me at conventions, people that work for big companies and big publishers and big developers, names you might know, and they're like, yo, man, thanks for saying what you say. Thank you. You're right. And they move on with their lives or whatever, because they at least have someone speaking for them.
But do you feel like you're speaking for, what does that mean?
I don't
think you speak for the Republican Party. I think you speak for yourself.
I do speak for myself.
And
no, I'm
values people share. I'm not trying to fight you. I'm asking for this, because this topic has gone into very different sections, and I believe we're breaking it at around the 116 mark based on the nod Kevin gave me. So I mean, like, for what we're now talking about, I want to make sure if you're trying to make a call back to the first part of your topic, then we're making sense.
No, sure.
You're talking about people are coming up and talking to you about being financially conservative, liberal.
I stick up for those people that say, like, that are sick of being bullied for their beliefs, that are sick of being that are sick of being reduced into these caricatures or fucking character assassinated because of the way they feel. Of all of these kinds of things, those are the people that I'm speaking to, and those are the people that I think appreciate getting out of that echo chamber. The gaming industry is just, especially with games journalism, is just one vanilla fucking echo chamber of all of the same opinions. No one fights with each other, and no one disagrees with each other. And then there are certain outliers like me, and I've always been an outlier, and I'm proud of that because I think I have something valuable to say to people, sure. And I think I have a valuable point of view, and I really try my hardest not to just reduce the other side to a caricature. I think the other side, the far left of the other side, reduces itself to a caricature every time they complain about fucking gender diversity in a video game. Every time they complain about there's not enough Hispanic people or white people or black people, whatever, in this movie. Every time it happens, every movie that comes out, every game that comes out. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Instead of just being like, what makes sense for the story? And maybe the people that made this game aren't racist, and maybe they're not sexist. And that's really what I'm speaking to most, is that if we want to have a game with an all-female cast, that's great. If it makes sense for the story, maybe I'll play it. I mean, that sounds fascinating. Just like I'm fascinated by Horizon's female character, but maybe we shouldn't read the worst into people because of the decisions they make.
But see, now we're back to the other topic, where it's the core of that argument, and is again the center section of it. The people who want to flog some game developer or company or a writer for having an all-white cast, or attack them for you're only putting people in for diversity. In the middle, there is a group that had that. There was another group that said, with reason, I'm a girl and I play games and I'd love to see more women in games. And that did dawn on a developer. Maybe my next game I'll make it a female thing. And they did, and it was great. You know what I mean?
And is that a reasonable way to deliver your message? Yes.
And that's what I just want to talk about.
Right.
There isn't, knowing you well, it's not that you're saying there shouldn't be any of this. There's the reasonable middle, as always, where the good things do come from it, but now it's getting to these extremes and it's not making sense anymore. Yeah, and it is just becoming one giant dogfight.
The only danger is that because you can't get popular by not operating on the extremes, right? It's very easy. It's way more easy to represent that sort of ridiculously loud voice on that side and be heard than it is to actually have a fair and balanced conversation with people. And that's the danger of it, right? Is that people realize that if you can be the extreme voice, then you can get people to rally behind you. And it's dangerous. And that's what I think you see a lot of the times with, especially, with progressive thinking, is like, I'm going to go so far left that that it's very dangerous for anyone to take me on. And you can become a spokesperson for that. It's interesting. I don't know. I would say, because I would say as far as out there as you think you are, you're not. I think, Colin, you're more fair and balanced than you probably give yourself even credit for. But I do, not to take anything away, I do think people I see it all the time. People do give you a lot of shit on Twitter for various things, and I think it's good, and I think you should be out there. But part of the reason why you are so popular is because you do represent a very pointed perspective, much more so than myself. I tend to be more middle of the road on things, largely out of fear, as that I don't necessarily think that I'm as educated in a lot of these topics as I should be, so I don't speak. But I digress.
Yeah, I think that I respect and appreciate that fear. I had to let it go. And I did. I let it go a long time ago. And I used to be much more of a flamethrower than I am now. But there is something to be balanced and look at things both sides. And I just try to approach things not from a party lens. I don't want to be
Big Kev, the door's ringing.
I don't want to be reduced to that. Like we always joke about it, and people in our audience joke about it, but putting people in a box, whatever. It's like, or putting me in a box, like when oh my God, Portillo, shut the fuck up.
Hey, come here.
When I see a topic, I don't look at it through a political lens. I look at it like, what makes the most sense for the consistency of my own stance, my own viewpoint. That's how I came to the gay marriage conclusion. That's how I came to the pro-choice conclusion. I used to be pro-life. That was one thing that I was pro-life not too long ago, 5 years ago. And I looked at it and I was like, this isn't consistent with Republican values, really. Because what's consistent with Republican values is to say, do what you want to your own body. Now, there must be limitations. We've talked about this on Conversation with Colin. I don't think there should be abortions probably after 14 weeks or so. But I think that you have to give women a way out. It's their body. The baby cannot survive without the woman. This is a consistent argument, right? And so I was like, it's not a popular thing to be pro-choice and Republican, but there are pro-choice Republicans, and I'm one of them. Because that's, so I and it's the same thing with fiscal policy or any of those kinds of things. You got to approach it on a case-by-case basis. I just think that there's these whack jobs on both sides, and I think that are most pronounced on, frankly, the progressive left, that really do believe that the world should be scrubbed and sterile, that there should be no offensive things being said about anyone, no jokes, nothing funny, complete and utter diversity in gender and ethnicity in terms of every piece of fiction, or they're not going to be satisfied. And I think that's fucking comical. I mean, to the point, like, I think that's comical, you know? And then the other side that are just fucking crazy reactionaries, and I don't agree with them either. But yeah, it's one of those things. I guess I want to talk about this, and I guess I got so passionate and heated about it, and I am so passionate and heated about it, and you've not heard the last of it from me, is because I am just sick of being lambasted.
Well, here's my question.
Anti-poor, anti-gay, anti-this, anti-that, and I'm like, fuck you. You know what I mean? I am none of those things. Because I align with a certain group of people, or because I have a certain group of people. Like, does every Democrat agree with each other? Why do I have to? To be labeled as something? I have to agree with everyone. We all agree with each other.
You're stumbling into my question. Why pick? Why say you're a Republican if you don't agree with them on certain issues? Why not? I'm an independent. I don't vote in either primary. I don't care. I'll get to the point and then pick the lesser of two evils, who I agree with the most, who checks the most boxes.
Well, that's an easy question to answer, is because I align with the most of the topics that are most important to me. And you talk about voter topics, right? And things that people vote for. Some people vote for social issues. Some people vote for fiscal issues or military issues. For the things that matter most to me, which is scale of government, spending, and taxes, I agree 100% with the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. And in fact, maybe even more extreme than the mainstream of the Republican Party in those respects. And I think that I have a choice. I can either retreat and become an independent, which is fine, but you have no power. You have no political power as an independent at all. You have political power in terms of the sway of the general elections, but you have no choice in candidates. You have nothing. You have nothing to say. And I think that's a powerless place to be. If you want to be there, and a lot of people are there, 20% of the population or so, then that's fine. But my whole thing is like, I'm just going to change this motherfucker. I'm going to change people's opinions about what this party can be and what it is and what younger people look at and what's important to them. And we will change the party just as the party has changed many times. These parties are not static. You know what I mean? The Democrats were the ones that held slaves. The Democrats were the ones that supported Jim Crow. The Democrats were the ones that started Vietnam and Korea. The Democrats were the ones that did all of these things, and they managed to change their party into what it is today. So why can't we change our Republican Party into being into morphing into what we want it to be as well? Mm-hmm. The Republicans freed the slaves. You know, the Republicans ended those wars. The Republicans wanted nothing to do with those wars. You know, it's like things have changed, and so they can change again, and they will change again. And I've talked about it in the past where I need to be engaged with trying to change the system, or I'm just like, what right do I have to complain? If I'm not as engaged as possible, I have no right to complain to the extent that I do. And
see, it's always for me is the thing with it, right? Is like, it's the vote with your wallet mentality with that. I wouldn't align myself with either of these parties because I have so many problems with each one of them. You know what I mean? And like what you're saying is interesting, and I'm sure you have a completely different perspective. You live it every day. People attack you on Twitter. They say mean things about you on the internet, right? But like for me, I see the mud getting thrown both ways. I feel like I see the caricatures, the cartoon versions of each side both ways as much as ever. Fox News yelling about the Democrats or whatever. Everybody on MSNBC saying something over here about Republicans. The vice versa of it. You know what I mean? And so for like you're like, is this really what people think of the Republican Party? It's like, yeah, when their big message is God and they're going to shut down Planned Parenthood, yeah, fuck those guys. Yeah, now I can turn around and tell you why fuck the Democrats as well. Don't get me wrong.
But I mean, that's another character, is the Planned Parenthood thing. Like, those Planned Parenthood videos are at best questionable.
I'm not even talking about the videos, just so I don't know.
Well, but that's why they want to shut down Planned Parenthood. Is because of all the videos with the selling of fetal material and stuff like that. Yes. And everyone just brushes that off. Oh, these are doctored and all that. No, they're not. You know what I mean? Yeah, maybe they like are selectively releasing, but the doctors said what they said in them. And my whole stance is like, yeah, maybe Planned Parenthood doesn't need to be funded. Here's the thing. We'll just give the money to someone else to do what they're doing. You know, like, that makes me a sexist? Because I'm like, maybe this organization doesn't deserve the federal government's money if this is what they're doing. Maybe we should find a women's health organization that can help the women and not deal in the selling of baby parts. I don't know. That's just my opinion on that. But, so that's exactly what I'm talking about, is that like, there's always a reason why I feel a certain way. Now, I know a lot of people, just go along with party lines on both sides, and that's just never the way I've been. I've just never been that way. I don't support these big war efforts that the Republicans, this war machine kind of mentality. I don't support that. But there's a lot of fighting factions within the Republican Party, and I just support and am really aligned with one of 4 or 5 of them. And is the party probably going to self-destruct? I assume so, but I want to see it through to the end. And then we see what comes out of the ashes in 2020, 2024 if the Republicans lose this election, because it's going to be bad if they lose this election again. For the party, not maybe for the country. Maybe that's what people want. That's what they're going to get. Yeah. And I've been guilty of characterizing and using characters more in a joking way of the other side too. Of course I have. I mean, I love that picture that I saw. I just got pictures of that girl holding the Bernie Sanders sign where it says, "I don't understand economics" with an exclamation point. I think it's like one of the funniest things I've ever seen. But so I've done those things too. But generally, in my heart, I have a lot of respect for the other side, and I just know that people don't feel that way about me. Someone in this industry once told me, and I won't name names or whatever, but someone in this industry that works in journalism, that's a pretty well known name, told me that they would never hire or work with a Republican. So just consider that next time, you think we're all bad and evil people, is that maybe we're just like you, and I just try to see the other side, and my mind's always malleable and always open to change.
That's what I like about you.
And I just refuse to we might characterize or use caricatures of the other side sometimes, but I'll never want to straight up demonize them. I want to talk about them and talk about their ideas and why their ideas suck.
That's the whole thing about you is that you're, and I don't mean Republican, I mean political. I feel like you're the rare breed of that. At least the one who has a platform, who can speak and do all these different things. I feel like you look at Bill O'Reilly, you look at Jon Stewart, you look at all these different things. Like, you know what I mean? There's all these different exceptions where that's not what it is. It is the other side is bad. We are the good guys. And that's why the country is completely fucked and nothing gets done and no one believes in it. The government.
I don't really much believe in the government either, but I just feel like we can't have a defeatist attitude. We have to try to change it. We have to try to change it. Hurling bombs at each other. Like, we've never been this. The fact is, we've not ever been this divided since the 1860s, the 1850s. Like, we've never been this divided. Where, like, I really feel like this country, most people in most states in this country would be totally fine with splitting this place into two at this point. Like, I really do believe that. And I'm like, that's such a defeatist attitude. Like, we all have and want the same things. Why do we hate each other so much? And why do people hate me so much? And I'm not talking about me as Colin Moriarty. I'm talking about me as, like, my political alignment. Like, why do you hate me? When I'm a patriot. And I believe in this place, and I believe in this country, and I believe in each other, and even the people on the other side. I want to bring them along. When Hillary Clinton's talking about one of her favorite, one of the best enemies she ever made was the Republican Party, I'm like, well, that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's an interesting thing to say. That won't come.
That won't
come haunt you.
A lot of things are going to get done if she gets elected, right?
Yeah, Obama won 9% of the Republican vote in 2008 because he was, including me. I voted for Obama in 2008 because he talked about bringing us together, and he was totally full of shit. But I believed him at the time of, like, post partisan is what he used to talk about, like moving past the divide and coming together. And of course, again, he was completely full of shit. But I believed in that message, and I thought that message was quite uplifting, and that's why I voted for him, because I was like, I believe that he doesn't hate me, Yeah. And I look at the candidates now, and I look at the way people talk about my side now, and maybe the way my side talk about the other side now, and it's just like, there's just hatred. It's just hatred.
Exactly. It's pure hate. And that's the problem.
And it really is. It's deep, unabiding, real hatred.
Yeah, totally. And that's, I think, what drives so many people away, and why it's so interesting that you stand there trying to fix this. Whereas I think, again, we're back to this argument I made on PlayStation or PS I Love You, right? Of, like, there's the core audience that you're in and really cares about this, and then there's everyone on the outside looking in who's like, it's fucking waste of time.
Yeah, and both sides are guilty of it. Sometimes I say things that are too democratic, and I'm called a rhino or a fake Republican. Sometimes, like when I went about Bernie Sanders on my Facebook page the other day and saying, like, I watched this interview.
I'm calling you the rhino.
Yeah, the rhino. I kind of like
Call
it.
him the rhino Moriarty.
And Ryan Sandberg?
And I went on about Bernie Sanders. I was like, he's a really interesting man. I'm really fascinated by him. I just don't understand, like, his tax platform's ridiculous. He's going to tax everyone. He's not going to tax the rich. He's admitted it before, blah, blah, blah. Just people jump down my fucking throat, And then I go back at them because I present myself respectfully. But if you want to come at me like that, then we will play. We will have a dance. But
in 4 years, you can run for president and you'll fix everything.
I wish.
We'll vote you in. The best friends will vote you in.
Anyway, thanks for dealing with my rant. I mean, that was longer, and I didn't intend to. That was way longer than I thought it was going to be. But
the headline of this topic is going to be Colin is really passionate about
two.
things.
So this is
the second topic
one?
is going to be Colin's really passionate about things. I think people are going to like that.
I'll just be quiet for the fourth topic because I talk too much.
No, you did good. No, please. I didn't want to talk at all today.